Okay. Yeah. So Saniba, you should be able to share your screen. Or do you
Yes.
have slides?
Yes, I can. I will do that. So yeah. So guys, I mean, let's keep this pretty informal. So I'll just go through all the stuff. Like I don't really have slides prepared, but I have something so you can follow through. So it's not going to be just me talking. But yeah, like keep asking questions wherever you have. Don't assume anything. I totally understand. It's completely like brand new information. No idea how the job market works or how things are. So like, I will try to be as transparent as possible. So just ask me anything. Okay.
Okay.
I already like wrote like a blog post on my website about all my experience. What are the tips and tricks and strategies and what kind of things you need to prepare and everything. So I will just go through that. So let me share the screen. Oh, sorry, not this. Yeah, can you guys see that? Yes, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Oops. Okay. So yeah, so when we start applying, right? So we don't really know, like as PhD students, like where to start, what to apply. I think we mostly go off of people that we know. We met in conferences, some industry people who met in conferences and all that. But so let's kind of get a good landscape of what type of jobs are actually available. So I feel most of us, especially like the PhD program in business administration or IS specifically or marketing, so we generally look for data science kind of jobs. Some people may look for pure software engineers like coding, but I would say very rarely. So I'm not going into software engineering jobs here. So I'll purely look at data science jobs. So there are different tiers, like some entry level jobs, some very advanced level jobs. So there are kind of like the 6 tiers of data science. So it starts with business analyst. Like this is kind of like entry level data science job. People usually just after undergrad with not much skills generally get here. Like they do basic dashboarding and SQL, where they just look at data and then like write reports on sales or customers or metrics, things like that. And business intelligence is slightly advanced version of that. So what we would be targeting is mostly number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the more ambitious and the more skilled we are, the higher up the ladder that we would want to climb. And even the interviews will get much more difficult as we go down. And even the preparation will get much more difficult as we go down. So let's start with like the basic one that we could apply to, which is like product data science. So here you need to have like good working knowledge of like Python, basic machine learning, and you should be capable of doing advanced business analysis, as in using SQL, advanced SQL. You should be very comfortable with that. For example, let's say, let's take an example of Facebook. So Facebook has all these different things, like newsfeed, friends, marketplace, and they have like jobs, they have like, every aspect of their product. So there is a team that works on improving that. There are software engineers that work on improving that. There are program managers who work on identifying what is the pain point. And they have like an army of data scientists who analyze the data and then see what is the best thing to do, what feature we should develop, how are users reacting to that feature. So it requires slightly intro ML, but not really. Even product data science, their day-to-day job consists of a lot of SQL. I would say 60% SQL, some Python, some ML, depending on the need that arises. So cracking these interviews, like I said, you need to be very comfortable with Python in terms of, like how to analyze data with Python, how to graph with Python. And there will be questions around intro ML, like, oh, what's the difference between lasso and ridge? Like how do decision trees work? Or things like, are you familiar with gradient descent? And also there will be rounds on advanced business analysis where they will ask you like SQL questions. And because this is product data science or data science in general, people want to in interviews, they want to know your product acumen, which is, how can you think about product? Like, how can you identify, oh, this is how I will identify the problem. This is how I'll solve it. This is how I'll work with everyone. So a lot of soft skills are necessary in all these jobs. So that is one main different thing from academia, where soft skills are not really tested. It is more of like a intrinsic thing, right? They take you out for dinner, they ask you for chats. So there they assess your soft skills, not really anything formally. Most of the assessments are like, in terms of your research, your pipeline, your growth and all that, your capability of independent research. So soft skills are assessed more, in a weak manner or, indirect signaling manner. But here, all those things are assessed in a very straightforward manner. So for us, I would say like number 4, number 5, number 6 are the things that we would generally target. So which are like, data scientist, a research data scientist, and a research scientist. So in a lot of companies, research data scientist position may not even exist. They kind of blend into each other. Like, data scientists are, for example, in Apple, data scientists do all these 3 work. There is no specific research scientist position. But in Facebook, this is very clearly specified. Data scientist is different from research data scientist, different from research scientist. In Google also, like, sometimes it's blended. But let me explain, in an ideal world, when there is a demarcation. So data scientists, where we would probably go, they would be expected. Any questions?
Also, I have a question. So regarding the research data scientist and research scientist, you mentioned the difference is the focus on coding production systems. So what is that?
Okay. So research scientist is expected to identify the problem, solve the problem by themselves, and actually code it into production. As in, they are going to, so let's say I'm identifying like a new machine learning model which will predict churn or, like all that. So a research data scientist will probably identify the problem, understand what data they need, how to build, what modeling solution they should use, and they will test it, they will validate it, and then they will probably make a prototype. But a research scientist is expected to actually code that prototype into production, which is, which will work on millions and millions of rows, which will work forever. So they will look at code reliability, like how code fits into other code, like writing test code. So everything. So they are basically like a amalgamation of software engineers and data scientists, but more focused on software engineering. That's what I mean.
I see. So they will also, like after they make the demo, they will also do the engineering work to make sure this can work in the real scenarios.
Exactly. So they are expected to do that. Whereas a research data scientist is not really expected. But if they are comfortable doing that, they have the scope of doing that. But more like they would probably just do a prototype, do all the validation, and then give it to research scientist or software engineer to deploy it, to engineer it.
So it sounds like the research data scientist is like how we do research, right? Is we just finish a paper, we make sure it works, all the stuff, but we don't really implement it in the company's like real systems.
Definitely. So like I was mostly targeting for research data scientist positions. So because let's say like a research scientist position, so the interviewing process will get way more difficult because they're expected to be software engineers. So you should be very good with algorithms. Very good with understanding how system design works, like servers and, load balancing, things like that.
I see. So a stupid question is, does the salary like increase as this number increases?
That's what I want to definitely. Yes. Salary will increase. So I would say like there is kind of like between these two, not really that much. I would say once you get into research territory, they're pretty much the same. It depends on what expertise that research data scientist brings and research scientist brings. So research data scientist is expected to be very good with, like coming up with these novel solutions of data science, like optimizing them, be comfortable with all aspects, including like SQL, machine learning, Python, big data, like, so like the optimization. So they're comfortable with, like given a question, they're going to get you the solution. So like that's expected of these people. So these people they generally work with, but then the focus is more on production. That's what I want to say. But they also sit and solve data science problems with the people in the team.
Can I know the kind of like, I know you did a lot of research on it when you try to seek a job. Can I know what's the average salary for each of this level?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, so it depends a lot on company. For example, top companies like Meta, Facebook, Apple pay differently compared to maybe like tier 2 companies. Also like the stock options, everything differ, and also a lot depends on how you negotiate with them. Same exact interview result, same exact experience, like a counterfactual twins will get very different salaries if they don't negotiate. So offer negotiation is one of the biggest things, especially in the industry. So if I have to actually, put some number, let's say, like I worked at Google before, and I was more on business intelligence, and I was borderlining on product data science back then because, but I was hired for BI. So let's say like, I don't know, like, and also obviously the difference is also years of experience, right? Like a fresh grad may not crack into research data scientist, they probably require some experience or PhD or,
I see.
skill track. But I mean, like a very good data scientist at Apple. So let's say, like if you were to get into a good tech company, do well, good negotiation, I would say it's around 250, 260K is a good expected salary at the start.
Yeah, of course. You mean the level 3, right? Or level 4?
So levels again depend on different companies. For example, a level 3 in Apple is equivalent to level 4 at Google, level 6 at Facebook or something like that. And then, like Microsoft has like 65, 64. It's so different everywhere. So it's hard to know. So also there are, like applied scientist kind of a role, which is mostly in Amazon and, like Uber, things like that. So they also like applied scientist is more like a research data scientist. So there is also like economist positions, which is specifically in Amazon. So these are more your, like causal inference jobs. So they are like a typical applied econ curriculum. That's what they look at, whether they are comfortable with all these observational data methods, whether they have any track record on that. So yeah, instead of testing you on Python and machine learning, they would test you more on causal inference. And these are getting popular by the day in the industry. So let me see. Yeah, can you see the screen, the economist job section? So yeah, as you can see, like see as like senior economist, quantitative economist, senior economist. So like, Instacart has economist machine learning. So like some new things like pop up, like economist, like banks also have economists, things like that. So let me move on. I think you probably got a good understanding of just the scape. So you would want to target something here. I mean, or basically these two, applied scientists, research data scientists, senior data scientists, things like that. So let's go back to like, the type of companies that hire. So yeah, so there are like different types of, again, like companies. For example, the most common one is like product companies. So which is like Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix. And they have a central product. They're trying to improve that product. So you would probably do a lot of like machine learning stuff. For example, Netflix, you might want to develop like, some improvements to their recommendation algorithms, on their newsfeed, or, if it is in some examples, other examples could be that they're looking for emerging markets. They want to know what are the best pricing strategies or things like that. So you would work on those solutions. Or, you're working with the content team in identifying what kind of shows to make, like using data. So things like that, really interesting questions. So yeah, and so one other types of companies is marketplace, which is, like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart. So these are like three-sided marketplaces. So there is a lot of optimization here, So which restaurants should our salespeople target? What should be the compensation for a delivery driver? How do we predict demand and supply? What should the pricing be? Like subscription pricing be? And in the case of like Uber, like how should we incentivize drivers? Should it be based on minutes? Like all that. How should surge pricing be? Like a lot of like really interesting problems here, to be honest, compared to product companies. So marketplace are like crazy interesting because you need to balance three different sides of like market, customers, like the delivery partners, and like all that. So Uber is like a two-sided platform. DoorDash is three-sided because they have restaurants, they have dashers, they have customers, people who buy food. So like it's these, they have like some of the most interesting problems. But they're not as stable as these the other like product companies, because these are very well established. Everything, the stock is much more stable, whereas these like if you want to do YOLO, I would say join marketplace companies because you get to have like very good time solving interesting problems. And obviously there are finance companies which I'm not really familiar with, because I wasn't even close to considering these. But like for finance folks, so these are like, there are like really interesting and they pay really well as well. Like Goldman Sachs, Amex, I think it's more in terms of like time series, demand forecasting, like things like that. But I'm not really familiar, so I won't go into that. Yeah. Any questions so far here?
Sorry, because I missed the first part of your presentation. I just want to ask, what kind of position did you receive like this time? Is it data scientist position, like, or research data scientist?
So the name is data scientist because Apple doesn't really have research data scientist and research scientist.
Okay.
But if I would have to say, I would probably working in research data scientist because it's a Apple research team.
Mm-hmm.
So just the role name doesn't have like research in it.
Well, what kind of the like functional topics you are trying to focus on in this department?
So I am joining their experimentation team, which is kind of my research work for the past 4 years. So I will be developing their central experimentation platform that will test all the new features on all the Apple apps, like Apple Music, Apple Arcade, Apple TV. So whenever they deploy these features, they would want to test it. So we are developing software for that. Also, like I will mostly be focused on the stats backend, the stats engine that will power all these tests.
Okay.
So the main focus will be on how can we use like the big data on like on stats and things. And also some of the interesting projects that we might be focusing on is basically privacy experimentation, because Apple is like hugely on like privacy, but experimentation is as bad as it gets in terms of privacy because you're getting how they behave. So I think some of the focus are, like how do we balance that? Like let's say Apple is huge on deploying models offline on the phones and things like that. So what will happen if that's the case? How do we conduct experiments in that scenario?
Interesting.
Yeah, so there are some like really interesting questions there.
You get a more chance to run field experiment than us, actually.
Yeah.
So like in the interview, so they mostly value your skills in like causal inference, or like as you said, like causal inference, statistics, things like that.
So yeah,
you're not paid too much attention to machine learning kind of stuff this time, right? In the interview, I mean.
So yes, so I did kind of mention that causal inference is mostly economist jobs, but these days, a lot of these roles are also asking for that.
Okay.
So like,
what kind of questions they ask the most? I mean, in terms of this your skill sets.
I mean, so they mostly ask like case studies. For example, like I'll give you a very good example of one causal inference question.
Okay.
So let's say, like Netflix wants to promote the show Squid Games in New York.
Okay.
So they want to do it through billboards.
Okay.
So they want to buy billboards across New York, and then they want to, like promote it in the hopes that people will, subscribe, because now they want to see Squid Games, and they will purchase the membership, and then they will keep it, and then they will pay us money, and we'll make a lot of money and be profitable. So, but the question is, are billboards actually effective? Is there like a good, does it have like a good return on investment? So how do you evaluate that?
Gotcha. So essentially, they give you the kind of like a situation, like a case, and ask
Exactly.
to like design and experiment, things like that. Like
Exactly. You are exactly right. So
How
most of
many-
the things
how
are
many
not
rounds?
really. Yeah, Chafan.
I mean, how many rounds? I know this kind of case study, maybe case study question, maybe in the final round or in the initial round, how many rounds you will go through, and what kind of types?
On average, for the companies that I interviewed, it's 6 to 7 rounds.
Holy
Or
shit.
more, actually. Yeah. So I'll slowly get into those. So yeah. So most of the stuff I'm speaking, right? I mean, I actually put these two in the morning, but
Okay.
everything else is like very, very rigorous. Everything that I want to say is probably already here on the website, so you can go any time in the future as well. But so I do have, like resume and cover letter prep, technical prep, behavioral prep, like case study. So now I think for the rest of the talk, I'll try to cover about referrals. Because resume and cover letter, I'm sure like when you actually apply, you can come here and look at it, and then I'll briefly go through some aspects of these. Does that sound right?
okay, interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So yeah. So the idea with this, guys, is I mean, unlike academia job market where there is a portal, you can just send your applications. People look at your what do I say, like your university, and then they'll give you a job, right? I mean, not job, like they'll give you a call on site, or they'll look at whether they're looking for relevant research, so things like that. So, but here the uncertainty is much higher than that. Like it's not a small world; it's a huge world. So if you just go and apply in their portal, it's very hard for you to get a call back. So the best way to get a call back is getting a referral. So the reason is, like referrals are important is, let's say I have two different resumes. I don't know, like people can fake on their resume, or, I can't really evaluate their work just by reading it, because some person can just be doing some normal dashboard and they can say that, oh, like I did dashboarding worth $3 million. Things. It's very hard. There is so much uncertainty in just evaluating through resume. But let's say someone in my company that I know is a good person, they work really well, they're successful, refer someone, then they know that, okay, okay, so this person might be trustworthy. So all they're doing is they're trying to reduce uncertainty around you as much as possible. That's the whole process of the interview. So they start with resume screening, and then they'll see like whether referral or not. They'll do like an intro call. Then they will, like through each and every round, they're trying to reduce uncertainty around your performance, or your future success probability. So yeah, so referral is one of the best ways that they do that. So always try to get referrals rather than just applying on the portal. Like I didn't get a single call back when I applied on a portal. It's crazy. Like I have like Google on my resume, still I don't get call back. Can you imagine that? It's that bad.
Can I ask one point here? So what kind of referrals do you have? Like, I mean, in terms of the level that they are in the company? Is like management level, or what
so I would say it doesn't really matter. Like getting any referral is good.
Okay.
So basically what happens in companies is, as an employee, I have a portal where I can go and upload your resume and then talk about you. So when a recruiter gets an internal resume, like referred by someone in the company, they try to give it a priority. That's what I mean. So maybe like, let's say if you know someone in the company, for example, like a data science manager or someone, and then you directly contact them and they write a message to the recruiter saying that, hey, I know this person, why don't you start interviewing them? So that definitely carries a weight. It happened with me on LinkedIn. I knew the head of data science, so I just wrote to her saying that, hey, I'm in the job market. And then she sent the resume directly to the recruiter, and I got a call that evening. So, there is some weight that gets carried, but like for basic, I would say, at least try to get a referral inside the company. And the good thing is people are more than happy to refer you, because if you actually convert, you get a referral bonus. So there is an incentive for an employee to refer you. So that's why all these things work, which is, you can contact people on LinkedIn, like just cold email them and then ask, hey, like I'm looking for this, do you think I'll be a good fit? Can you please refer me? So be as much nice as possible. Most of them, like some of them, like once they get into the company, they don't really check LinkedIn. So if they are not replying, doesn't mean that, they don't like you or something. They probably don't check LinkedIn. So let's say I'm applying for like an Apple data science, like I know this is the role I want to be at, or, like say like Spotify data scientist role. I will just look on LinkedIn and find all the Spotify data scientists. I'll email 10 of them in LinkedIn. At least 2 of them will reply and 1 of them will refer me. So play the numbers game. So when it comes to industry job market, it's pretty much the numbers game. So you play as widely as you can, and eventually like one will convert. So yeah, so I just want to like focus, or like say that referral is the only way to go, because even I didn't get a single call back when I just applied through the portal. Yeah, so there are like different ways that you can get referrals here. And LinkedIn, like just buy LinkedIn Premium if you're in the job market. It's totally worth it, because you get access to like all sorts of like really cool stuff. It's $50 and the upside is considerably higher. So just get it like 2-3 months prior to your, like once you start preparing, maybe just get, so you can keep looking at what kind of jobs are coming. You can keep bookmarking them, apply directly, or you get to email anyone in the LinkedIn using LinkedIn Premium directly to their email. So all those features are really worth it. Any questions here? Okay, so resume and cover letter prep, it's very, very different compared to academia. So I have like a lot of resources here on how to make like a really good resume and cover letter. So you can come back to this when you start applying. So now, even if I say anything about it now, it's not going to be of much use. But just know that a tech or industry resume is very, very different compared to academia. They're looking for completely different things. So if you just write like 10 papers that you worked on, it's not going to help you at all. So like, yeah, so that's one. And so let's get to like the technical preparation. So yeah, so like I mentioned, there are like different aspects of the interviews that you need to prepare. Like, for example, algorithmic coding. So which is like, we kind of like went over this in Alok's class, all the trees, all the graphs, all the arrays, all the data structures, like a knapsack problem, things like that. And obviously SQL is.
I have a question about the first one, the algorithms coding. Is there any big difference between the question between this position and the position for the computer scientist?
It's pretty much the same.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. So the computer science stuff, so this is what's asked in software engineer roles as well. So the reason why I included this is, so as you go in better and better positions like applied scientist, research data scientist, or research scientist, algorithmic coding round is like pretty much given. For example, Amazon applied scientist role had 2 algorithmic coding rounds. So this is pretty much, you need to prepare for algorithmic coding if you want like better industry jobs. If you want a normal like kind of data scientist or product data scientist, you don't really need it. You can get away with it. But if you want like really, really good, high impactful jobs, you need to get your hands dirty with algorithmic coding.
I'm wondering, like during your work, will you write paper, or like do the people collaborate with academia people to write paper?
Definitely, I think again it depends on, for example, a product data scientist may never write a paper. A data scientist may, there is a scope, but a research data scientist, applied scientist, research scientists, they do write papers. For example, in my team, like we are very aggressively aiming for Code MIT, the code conference that happens in MIT every year, conference on digital experimentation.
Yeah, yeah.
So we will be aggressively developing research for that, and we'll be presenting there. So yes, some teams do.
I see.
Yeah.
But generally, like how they evaluate your work
Inside companies?
Inside, I mean, in general, like maybe there's like an annual evaluation, like what do they based on? Is it based on like accomplishment or like your contribution to the company or like whatever?
Yeah. So you are right. Different companies have different timelines of review. I think Apple has yearly and one soft, and then Google has once every 6 months. It's called performance review. So it's against your goals that you set for yourself with your manager at the start of the cycle. So that's what used to be. So when I was working at Google, so it was like that at the start of like your performance review, or at the quarter, you set something called as OKRs, like objectives and key results. So you will be evaluated against your set OKRs, whether you accomplished them, how good were you compared to your other peers. So it's mostly like like peer kind of like a comparison based, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
so
but you don't have sort of like this pressure to publish papers or like attending conference like this.
Definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. So it's mostly like internal impact, not really like yeah.
Okay. And you do all these kind of projects, you do this whatever projects, product kind of stuff. It's all like internal evaluation. You don't have to sort of make any impact to the external kind of stuff.
I mean, if you look at external, right? For example, let's say you're working on sales, some sales project or reducing churn. So the impact would be on how much money you save, things like that. For example, I'll give a very concrete example. So when I was working at Google, right, I was in anti-abuse team. So my job was to develop these spam filters that will remove bad websites from showing up in Google search. So my impact was how many websites did I remove through my spam filters? How many impressions were prevented because I did my work? So it was like, so there would be like very good internal metrics to calculate all that. So we used to do like something around 200 million impressions prevented in the last quarter. So like the more you do, the better it is. So it's like that.
One question about your flexibility. So I know you can come up with some ideas and try to build up a new project based on yourself, but also you have some project working with others. They give you some questions and you try to solve it. So what kind of proportion of your work, which one should be the most regular one for you to do?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think it depends on both the team and the seniority. So for example, let's say if I join in Apple as ICT 3, right? So like initially I would probably work on the problems that the team already has set. So I'll work with everyone, understand the systems inside, try to help solve their problems for the next 6 months. But let's say I get promoted to ICT 4, which is much more senior level position. So then I would probably, like start, thinking about projects that we can do and, lead them and, help them. Once I get to ICT 5, which is like the highest individual contributor level, then it basically means that you're completely doing stuff on your own, coming up with this very high impact project ideas, putting them into production, things like that. So it's kind of like a seniority level, just like a PhD student, right? At the start, you will work as an RA on research of your professor, then you come up with an idea. I mean, PhD, like the transition is really, really fast because there is second year papers, too much pressure. But I would say, like a typical computer science lab, right? So you start, by, fixing citations, then you do some literature review, then you help in analysis, then you come up with your own paper, then you, write it. So it's a very good hierarchy in computer science, PhD labs. So it's pretty much the same, I would say.
Gotcha. Great.
Yeah. So keep asking questions, guys. Those are like, I would say, like much more relevant than what I'm saying here. So like I said, so there are all these aspects that you have to prepare for. So I would say set at least 6 months to a year. Start in advance, like try doing these things like 1 hour in the evening. because all these things will take time for you to get used to. So like I said, algorithmic coding is more about coding algorithms, for example, like a knapsack coding problem or a binary search, or like a tree-based problem. So SQL, like, so this is where you can't really mess up. SQL is very simple, it's easy, and most of you should know by now. And every company generally tests you on this. So if you don't, I would say like start learning right now. And so data coding, so data coding is more about, like a data munging, like how are you working, how you are manipulating data with R and Python, like, so basically exploratory data analysis, missing values, feature selection, or sometimes they might even ask you to code algorithms like k-mean linear regression from scratch. So you should be very, very comfortable with the language of your choice. So yeah. And then obviously like causal inference, like I said, more and more people are asking these. So you need to be very comfortable with all the basic methods, fixed effects, and different def regression discontinuity, synthetic controls, like basic regression. So the more thing would be like, given the problem that they're asking in a case study, how can you relate a method to that problem and then solve it? So it's like that. Obviously, like because I was interviewing for A/B testing roles, there were like ton of A/B testing questions. Like, how would you design this experiment? How would you evaluate? So you basically talk them through like the power analysis or like effect sizes and all the pitfalls that actually, like, what metrics would you choose? How long will you run? All the things like that. So experimentation is getting more and more popular. So I would say like these are getting into the rounds. So I can walk you through a sample interview that I went through maybe, so you can understand. And stats, so statistic questions. So there were some rounds in something. Like I said, guys, so the more complex your role is, the better you want your work to be, the harder it gets, the interviews. So for example, in LinkedIn interviews, I was asked a lot of, like pure stats question. I can show you some example questions there as well. I think that would be more interesting. And definitely ML, you need to be very comfortable with all things ML. Sometimes it can just be like a case study saying that, like we want to predict demand at, for example, like a Uber. So how would you build a model for that? So then you would be talking about, like I will probably collect this data. I'll do this feature selection. I'll use this model. This is how I'll validate, and this is how I'll deploy it. Things like that. And or sometimes the questions might be, so what's the difference between a decision tree and a random forest? They'll just ask you randomly, and you kind of have to tell, does random forest reduce variance or increase variance? Or things like, what's the difference between lasso and ridge? So it can be direct questions or it can be case study based. So you need to be familiar with all the concepts. So yeah, so that's regarding this. So as you get close, guys, you can come here and see all the sources that I used to prepare it. You will get like much more better information. So I'll just, any questions?
So I'm wondering, like, for the different types of companies, they probably appreciate like different types of algorithm. So for example, maybe in Uber or in Lyft, maybe they want to hire people do operation, like they do the optimization problems. And here for these data scientists, they do like more data-driven machine learning stuff. So I think, for me, I know nothing about optimization. So I think maybe I should find the group that use this type of techniques the most, or like you mentioned, they probably want you to grasp all these types of methods. Is it that case?
So there is a balance. For example, Meetzy, like if you were applying, I would say probably you'll apply to like a Netflix recommendation team. It'll be perfect fit for you. So they will probably test you on what they are looking for, your strength. So like that. So I had an interview round with Uber, and they had like optimization questions, as in, so the questions were around, so let's say, like the drivers are paid on, like distance and time, so how would you design routes based on this payment? What is the optimal way to do that? Or, more like, how much would you pay for covering 1 mile versus 1 minute based on your routes? So like these are very like optimization based questions, not really UML, not really experimentation. So
Right.
so I didn't really do well in those, so I didn't eventually get selected. So obviously, like you will apply for roles and teams that match with your strengths. For example, I eventually ended up getting an Apple experimentation team, which was my strength. They didn't really ask me about optimization. But you can always interview and see. That's what I mean.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of that. You should definitely focus on your strengths more than trying to spread yourself way too thin. Like, so yeah. But at the same time, it's good to be familiar with this, with all the other things, just in case.
Sanjeev, I have questions. So, like in your interviews, like how do you feel about your interviewers? Like, are they pretty experienced, or do they know what they're asking, and how they evaluate your answers to the questions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's a mixed bag, I would say, because they are also dealing with a lot of constraints. Like I was sometimes interviewed by a complete brand new grad, like undergrad, and they were asking me questions about stuff which seems funny. But the thing is, so there is plus and minus to it. Minus because they don't really understand my experience and where I'm coming from in my answers. But there is nothing good about it. But the way they come around it is, the questions they're asking, they're very comfortable with those questions. They know what the right answer is, what all the possible answers are. So they're very good at evaluating my answer to that question. So they only ask the questions that they are very, very, very comfortable with. So they may not be an expert in general, but they will be an expert in that question.
Just imagine, like, because this could also vary from company to company, right? Because like better companies could have better, technicians or like people in those positions and who know those technique stuff more and better. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, if they would also like follow up with your answers and to ask like deeper questions depending on your answer, things like
they
that.
would do that. For example, like some of the best interviews I had were like LinkedIn, where they would ask, like they will just dig into you, like they'll just keep going until you break. But they also understand. So those are like they are really qualified people who worked on very impactful projects. So they are very comfortable interviews as well. But again, like you said, it depends on companies. For example, at DoorDash, which is more of a startup, they don't really have resources. They want their best engineers to sit and work on the problems rather than interview all the time. So that's the balance they have to make. So yeah, it varies from company to company, like you said.
So I'm wondering, like during in the team, when will you be willing to collaborate with people outside the team? I'm asking this because I'm thinking is sometimes for like academia people, we want to have this opportunity to collaborate with companies. And most of the time, they probably don't need such like outside people to influence them. But I'm wondering, like maybe at some point, they are also very willing to do the research with people outside. So, do you have any like tips?
Yeah, I mean, I did speak this with my manager before I signed. So what he said was that, right now it's a brand new team, so we don't really know how that scope of it is. And also like Apple is much more secretive in the work they do compared to other companies. So right now, at least for me, there is not a lot of scope. But the general answer to a general company, at least like, the top tech companies, is that they're hiring all these researchers internally, right? They don't really need to go and collaborate, find knowledge elsewhere. The only reason why they would do that is, for example, let's say Amazon. So they put like Guido Imbens, who is the Nobel laureate, as their poster child of Amazon science. So for them, it's more, like that. It's a signaling to the industry that, hey, we are working with Nobel laureates. You should come and join us. So I would say it's more for signaling rather than like pure collaboration, I would say. At least now, so the landscape now is like that. Maybe 10 years before it wasn't the case. Like Google used to work with Hal Varian, who is an economist in their pricing, and Microsoft was working with Susan Athey. Now Amazon,
they are already like big names.
I know. So that's what, like for them, it's more about signaling really, because if they want to work with you, they would rather hire you and throw money at you, maybe things like that.
I see. Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. So I will go through. So like other stuff is there, like like behavioral prep, case study prep, so things like that. You can always come back to this and get this. I will not go through it now. Let me just go through some interview questions and rounds from different companies I have. So that's much more interesting. Okay, let me find that.
I'm wondering, like now, since now we only have 10 minutes left, maybe we can leave the detailed interview question until when like some of us are really in need for that, and we can just discuss with you. Maybe we can use this time to like discuss some questions that are more high level, like about making decisions, like when we want to start our career, why do we want to choose this path or that one?
I agree.
Definitely, yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think I have two questions, high-level question. The first question is, what's your motivation to seek an industry job instead of research academia job? The second question is, I know we have different career paths compared with industry and academia. Can you give us an example or some general career paths in the industry? When you, for instance, you become a data scientist in Apple, right? And maybe like in 2 years or 5 years, what it will become? What kind of level you will become? How about 5 years later or 10 years later? I know it will be not too cannot get a very clear answer, but I think there should be a trend, right? Yeah, there's two questions.
Yeah, I think like 15 years later, Apple is the only tech company without Indian CEO, so maybe you can expect me there. Just kidding, but okay. So let me go back to your first question. So I actually thought about this for so long. Like even Midzi knows that. I think I was applying for academia like till like the last minute. But I finally had to put my foot down and kind of like see that, okay, industry is the thing for me. So like if you are going through that, like unsurety, don't worry about it. Make sure that you are thinking about it all the time. But the reason for me was that I really enjoyed teaching, like the teaching part of academia, and I do enjoy research as well. But for me, I felt like the lack of structure, or like worrying about, okay, like I'm not being productive, like, oh, I should be working now, so that was affecting my mental health, and especially like people around me. Like I would not be in a really good mood a lot of time because I was always worrying about something, and I felt it's not fair for people around me, and probably in the future myself, to be in that mindset all the time. And so I felt the alternatives that industry provides, just the work-life balance. Not, I wouldn't say the work-life balance. I would more say that, like work is work, life is life. But in academia, it's very mixed. You're always, like thinking about work. If you didn't work for the day, you are so guilty. Like I didn't want to feel like that forever. So I chose industry for that specific reason, not in terms of like research or any other stuff.
I see.
I think
Yeah.
so. I definitely agree with that. Especially in the academia, we have the pressure of getting tenured, and it's such a so time passed just so fast. And yesterday, I saw on the Facebook that one of my co-author, Zhuo Xing, he used to be in BC, and I think his pipeline is pretty good. I think from the point of my view, he's doing a great job, but he didn't get tenured in BC, and now yesterday there's the news about him. He's going to Wisconsin Madison, which is also very good. But I just feel it's so much pressure to get tenured in a very good university. Even for him, he's such a productive person. It's
Yeah. Exactly. Like I think I would say mostly the mental health aspect of it, especially like I could clearly see that it was affecting people around me. Like,
Is there a take a talk? Is there a clock for the tenure of 5 or 6 years for each school?
There's some differences across different schools in the past. I think even now for Minnesota, it's probably like 7 or 8 years. Yeah, but in recently, many schools just give you 6 years, and you're gonna submit your package in your 5th year. So literally, you only have 5 years.
5 years and a fixed number of papers should be published, right? No.
It depends. So like minimum, like for the top university, the minimum number should probably be like 5, or sometimes 5 is not enough. You probably need to publish 5 top journal paper, and then plus some like a little bit lower ranked paper. So they're gonna consider your whole package, not just the number of the publications.
But is that the person that you mentioned? Is he getting the tenure at the Wisconsin?
I think so.
Or he may need another 2 or 3 years to get tenure there.
I'm not sure. So Samba is the chair of the department in Wisconsin, and he just said Zhuo Xing is going to join them, but he didn't mention whether it's an like tenure position or not. But Zhuo Xing has like 8 publications, around 8 or 7, I can't remember, and some of those are very good journals. So I think he deserves a tenure position.
Yeah. Yeah, but so I think like in terms of like growth in industry, Chafan. So like I said, you'll become like you can either choose like an individual contributor track or like the management track.
Okay.
So yeah, so you can keep climbing up the individual contributor track, keep doing more and more impactful projects. Like you can grow there, but then there is a ceiling to it. But in the management track, you will still be working on. I mean, you won't be like technically coding. It will become pretty much like a tenured professor who is managing students and becoming chair and things like that. I mean, they still do some work, but it's more on like guiding people.
Which one you prefer?
So I think I didn't really think about it, but I feel like I am much more like suited for. I don't want to just sit and be like an IC. I feel like I work better with people. Understanding what projects to work on. So yeah, so there are like really good tracks that as well. You can grow there a lot more in that. But yeah, so it's very, very flexible, and you can always like switch companies if your visions don't align. So there is much more flexibility like that as well. But in academia, it's more like a marriage, like you are stuck in it. If you love it, it's good, but otherwise it's like, like it's like, yeah, I mean, you are with it like forever. So
I heard something, but I'm not sure is it true in Apple. So I heard when the like data scientist or programmer, when they reach like more than 35 years old or even older, the company think they are not productive enough, and they will try to hire those young people with lower salary but can do a lot of work, but they try to like just fire these people. Is it true?
I mean, there are yes and no. yes and no, because I mean, if they're really slacking off, then yes, they will fire them, because like they pay them so much money, but they're barely getting any work done. But a good, like a smart person, like a productive worker, not, you don't have to go out of your way. Like if you still do what is expected of you, it's more than enough, to be honest. So yeah, so there is like yes and no component to it.
I see. So you feel that the pressure is not as high as in the academia?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Hi, Sharon, why you come here? And we just try to end this discussion.
So maybe it's a wrong room. I don't know. Let me double check. I don't know. I don't know who actually scheduled the meeting with this link to me. This is very bad, people. Yeah. Sorry guys. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think Yi-Tang have a question.
Yeah, he has a question. Okay, so what is your advice attitude towards the decision? What kind of support did you get? I think I'm very lucky in that Ravi is my advisor, because like right from day one, when I told him that I'm thinking about industry, like he was very supportive. First he said that he understands it's my life, my choice. He will still suggest me to look at academia, but then if this is what I wanted to do, like I can do it. And not only that, he connected me with a lot of industry folks that he knows.
Okay.
The same
very
day,
nice. Yeah.
He wrote emails and said that, hey, like Sandeep is in the market, like he's really smart. Like why don't you, like see if you can hire him, things like that.
When you struggle with like go to industry or go to academia, did he give you some like decision support or some kind of suggestions to help you make your final decision?
I would say like, I didn't really approach him when I was not sure.
Okay, I see.
When I was considering industry like 90%, then I went and told him that, hey, I'm starting to apply here. Because irrespective of what, right, I would say most people in academia will expect you and like prefer you to stay in academia. Even Ravi including. If I would have gone to Ravi and said, hey Ravi, I'm confused, what should I do? He will pitch his case for academia any day.
Yeah.
So like, and if let's say if Ravi says that, oh, you should stay in academia, and then I go back and say no, like I don't think so, then it looks much in a very bad lens compared to me making a decision independently and telling him that, hey, this is what I'm considering. What do you think?
Okay. Yes. One more question is, when you decided to go to industry, before you get your first interview, how long it will take for you to prepare all these things together?
6 months minimum.
Minimum. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, I know it will take a lot of time to prepare.
Definitely, minimum is 6 months. So I would say more than that. So you generally apply around October, November, December, or like end August, October, November, December. So you would have to start at the minimum the Jan of the year. So let's say you're in your 5th year, so you need to start preparing by mid 4th year.
Oh, I see.
I mean, it's not like, oh, if I didn't prepare, then I'm screwed. It's not like that. Better late than never. But an ideal time, because it will take you to warm up to all these concepts. You'll slowly do coding, slowly do all that. Like read basic stats again, refresh topics. Do some mock interviews, or like do some all that. So it takes time. So the better, the earlier the better.
I think you have made a right choice, and also it's a good example for all the PhD students, because I believe research not this career is not suitable for everyone, suitable for all PhD students.
Yeah.
When I entered into this area, we thought we will become a researcher, we will become a professor. But during these 5 years, everything will change. Our mind will change. So I think you give us a good example. When we are a PhD student, we still have a chance to go back to industry and make our impact in the industry in another way, right? So I think it's a very, very good example. So I really like it. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Yeah, like I'm more than happy to like sit with you guys whenever you start the market. Like I want people to not feel stuck
Yeah.
like I'm just stuck, like there is just so much here. So luckily for me, I was in industry before, so I had some perspective coming in. But I feel a lot of people, they probably don't even think that there is a possibility. The horizon is not even open.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that way, like I'm more than happy.
Yeah, and also another reason I find your experience is very valuable to me is because, like, in the end, even though I'm in academia, I will be like teacher for many students who major in the IS, but their target is still going to industry. And sometimes I receive the questions such as, like, what kind of industry job should I look into? Like, what are the jobs like? Something like that. They want to know more information about the industry job seeking. So that's why I really want to learn more from your experience. And I find this whole project is very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, please feel free to invite me once.
Definitely, yeah. I was thinking maybe in some of my courses, I can invite my friends in industry, including you, to come and share your experience, working experience, and how to apply our knowledge in class in your company.
For sure. More than happy to do those. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's always good to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. I'll pre-order your time.
Any other questions, guys? Like, feel free. You can ask anything, or you can obviously, like, you can always message me. LinkedIn would probably be a better place once my email ceases to exist or something. So add me there. Ask me any question anytime, and I'll reply.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Sandeep.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations again.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks for attending. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.